Your weekly BNI meeting is your sales meeting. If it is the most important meeting of your week, then your calendar should show it and your actions should prove it, because actions speak louder than words.
I'm Clay Morgan, franchise owner of BNI Tennessee, Kentucky, and Southern Indiana. I want for you to learn how to accelerate your ROI as a member of BNI so that you're getting those customers more easily into your pipeline. Ryan Reed, who is our host of this podcast, he's been a member of BNI for over 25 years. And Ryan jokes that for the first 10 years of his membership, he paid full price to take the scenic route towards results while watching other members get their ROI a whole heck of a lot faster. Then he really figured out what drives results. For the last 15 years, Ryan has been performing at 100 points across our 5 key areas in the Power of One report. It's been tracked nationally. The Power of One report has for the past 12 years across the United States, and Ryan is the only member in the USA to have maintained that full 100-point record for that window of time. So I can think of nobody better to help us host our BNI Advantage podcast. Join me and Ryan.
Hi, yes, this is Ryan Reed, BNI Advantage podcast for the week, and it's all about your meeting, getting it on your schedule, on your calendar. If it is the most important meeting of the week, then it should be represented on your calendar, and it should be represented 30 minutes before the meeting and 30 minutes after the meeting. Why? Well, life happens. And when life happens, the dog gets sick, traffic, there's a wreck, you wake up, you got a stomach bug. There's going to be times that you're going to need that extra time to get to the meeting. And so ultimately, setting it where you're going to arrive there 30 minutes early, that is setting you up for success. But let's dive in deeper on why showing up 30 minutes earlier is so important. All right, first of all, guests. They naturally arrive early. Visitors usually get there early because they are unfamiliar with the meeting, the room, the people, the location. They're also concerned with life, traffic, what if there's a wreck. And so they have those scenarios and they're already planning to be there early because it would make them feel more comfortable if they arrive there early in general. So that's just the way it is. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to chamber events and I arrived early because I wanted to get comfortable with the situation. I don't want to arrive and all of a sudden a mic is handed to me and I'm told, introduce myself. And I don't know if I'm supposed to introduce myself and my company. Am I supposed to do a little commercial? What am I supposed to do when I go to a chamber event? And when I arrive early, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I can also see other people do it before I do it. That's one of the reasons why I love BNI, because they have the members give their commercials first, then the guests go, so the guests aren't put on the spot. It makes them feel more comfortable. Well, the next thing to make a guest feel more comfortable is you to be there to greet your guest at the door. One of my favorite statements that I make, whether it's an email, a text message, or I call them in person, is I always tell them the day before that, hey, I'll get there early so that way I can greet you at the door and introduce you to other people that would be in your sphere of who you're selling to. That way, in essence, I'll make you feel comfortable when you walk in. So what you're doing is you're taking all of that uncomfortableness, those butterflies that a first-time person's going to get, and you're helping eliminate them. You're telling them, hey, I'll be there before you arrive, and I'll greet you at the door and get you all signed in and make you feel comfortable. I'll even buy you your first coffee, and which is kind of funny because typically the coffees are for free, or the BNI, your dues pay for that. But the point is you can make it kind of funny. It's like, here, I'll buy you a coffee. You're making your guest feel comfortable. And guess what? If you get there early, you're also going to make other members who probably aren't there, you're going to make their guests feel comfortable. When someone feels comfortable about you, they're thinking about you. This is huge. What is the meeting? It's a sales meeting. It's all about how to get more business. And you're doing this now in a friendly way. And that is your first step to building credibility. The visibility side of it, they see you, you're there. And then ultimately, that builds credibility, which will bring you business, and that's profitability. Talk to someone else's guest. Now you're introducing them. Once that member gets there, go and introduce them back, the guest. Oh, hey, here's the person that invited you, and take them over. You have the opportunity also, as you're learning about their business, introduce them to people that are directly selling in their sphere. You're now really bridging the way to help them sell and help them see value in BNI. So the sooner you can get that value across, which happens right when they walk in the door, they really realize that this is so much more than a network event, that this is really a sales event. The faster you're going to answer their questions and potentially get a new member. You could schedule one-to-ones with members. You tell them, hey, I'm going to get there early. Why don't you get there early? And we can do a one-to-one. Now you're actually setting up the room, getting the tables out, getting the chairs out, and you're doing it together. There is a lot of bonding that happens when you work with someone else as you're talking. You're getting to know them, because keep in mind, to get a one-to-one, you need to be finding out more about their personal life and more about their business. And when you do those two things back and forth, then that's a one-to-one. And that can be accomplished in 15 to 30 minutes. That 30 minutes that you scheduled to get there early, you can now do that with that member. At the same time, if you have a visitor that you've already scheduled to come and you've let them know, hey, I'm going to get there early to introduce you to people when you arrive. I'll meet you at the door and I'll introduce you to a specific person. You tell that specific member, why don't we do a one-to-one? And I have a guest that's coming early. I would like to introduce you. Now that guest and that member are more likely to connect because you're getting them both to show up early and you're there to make that connection, make that warm feeling. That is a huge tip that if you'll employ, it will bring business to those two people. That's where the giver's gain really kicks in. See, it's not about you giving a referral. It's about you creating referrals. And that's the difference. You put two people together knowing that there's a good chance, because of their industry's alignment, that they're in the same sphere. In essence, they're selling to the same people, that you can create business by just getting them to know each other. And if you wait for the meeting to start, at that point, that part's over. The before the meeting officially starts is so important. And there's a reason why BNI has that first 15 minutes of open networking before you sit down, is for this. But that is really just doing the minimums. If you'll show up 30 minutes before, that's when you're really getting the solid part of BNI. So if you're waiting to the very end, then you're just kind of rushed through. There's too many people to talk to, and ultimately you're missing that. When you're showing up early, you'll start noticing pretty much the same members are also showing up early. And those members will also, if you look at the Palms report, typically have better scores. So what I'm saying is that they're getting more out of BNI because they are showing up early and they're leaving late. This gives you the opportunity to network more with the members that are getting it. You're always going to have that 80-20 rule in all professions and all aspects of life, meaning that 20% do 80% of the work. Those overachievers are the ones that are really getting it. And they're the ones that are going to show up early. So if they're showing up early, don't you want to communicate and work with those more? Align yourself to be a leader. You don't have to be a president or a vice president to lead. Just show up earlier. Get it on your schedule. Show up there 30 minutes early. And now you're with the elite of your BNI chapter. This is going to give you ROI on BNI, and it's simple. You just got to get there early. Okay. The 30 minutes at the end of the meeting, the reason why you need that there, and you can obviously leave at the end of the meeting, but having that scheduled means you will not be in a rush. This ultimately takes off stress. When you've already scheduled that extra half an hour, now when the meeting ends, you can get a lot of major things. Keep in mind, by rushing out or leaving a meeting early, it's saying, wow, that must be really important. And when you find out that it's to get to a doctor's appointment or it's something that's happening in life, devalues the sales meeting, the most important meeting of the week. It may not be really consciously known, but subconsciously, for sure, members are aware of that. And it seems like it's the same members that are always leaving early. And what you've done is you've lowered your credibility. By showing that you're leaving early, then it's natural to think, well, they probably don't have enough time to do the job right. Even if you're leaving to go inspect a job to make sure it is right, you're showing, though, that that's more important, as in getting out of there to do something else than hearing others. And it turns more into about you and less into what you're really striving to do, which is givers gain, helping others, listening to them. When you stay late, it creates follow-up questions and conversations. So now at the end of the meeting, you can now talk with your visitors and everyone else's visitors you can talk to. You didn't know the other visitors that were coming, and this gives you the opportunity, because you scheduled an extra half an hour, to stay and talk to these people that you didn't know they were coming. But since they did, and potentially aligned in the business that you do that could be potentially a referral, when you rush out, you've just missed it. And by being able to stay, you now have the ability to strike up a conversation with them, answer their questions. They may have a lot of questions that are very good about BNI, and ultimately you say, come back next week, because potentially they may have a really good alignment. What quite often happens is they think that their category is already covered. Let's just say they're a window washing company. It's like, you do window washing, yes, and we have a gutter and siding person in our place. They clean gutters and siding, but they don't wash windows. And why don't you do this? Come back next week. I'll put you with the person that owns that company, and you guys can talk through this, because you are actually selling to the same people and you could be very good referral partners. Once you answer that question, now you could have a really good residential team right there. But since you left early and no one answered that question to them, then it's not going to happen and they're not going to come back. But because you arrived early, you got to meet them at the beginning. So at the end, now they're more willing to talk to you at the end and say goodbye. And this is where it's so good to get those questions out, and let's answer them now. You're the salesman for BNI. And so you've got to answer those questions then. After they leave, that was a good meeting, but my seat's already filled, or I'm not going to be able to get referrals, or I'm not going to be able to come every week. And there's so many ways that you can answer those questions. But the biggest thing is you got to get them back to the next meeting. That next meeting is so important. And that's where having on your schedule 30 minutes, because if once you're out the door, they are too. So also, staying late helps convert referrals. So you're in your sales meeting and a member does their commercial and you're like, wow, I've got a good idea. Or I may know that person, or I need a couple clarifying questions on what they said. Then at the end of the meeting, that person rushes off. Or they left early, or they leave right when the meeting ends. And now you don't have the opportunity to ask them questions because they literally got out the door before you could get over to them. This happens so often. I'll hear members say, like, I had a referral and I just forgot because they left right after the meeting. Let's just say you got there early, you stayed through the whole meeting, but now you're rushed out the door on a regular basis. You're losing business. You're losing referrals. and you're losing credibility. So there's a reason why the VCP plan works. When you're visible, you're there early, you're there in the meeting, and you're there late. People start to think that you're there for them. That creates the credibility. Credibility obviously has a lot to do with you showing up and getting the job done, but these all will equal profitability. So next, we're going to dive deeper into the actual internal part of the meeting. I see you, BNI Advantage, next week.